Oh, welcome to my channel. This is Canny Gamer and I'm Mark, and this is episode 13 of Vranyoskaya. We rejoined today where we have got to early June. We put the interface back on, where we have started expanding the industry. We first of all built a distillery, and then we've built a farm at the back of the distillery with the intention of harvesting crops to supply the distillery so that we don't have to buy crops at the customs house. So we are making alcohol at the distillery, and we're selling that to make money, and we're making quite a canny profit on that. But we can do better by making our own crops. But it takes some considerable time to get these crops in place. First of all, we've had to build the farm. That's not so bad. That hasn't taken too long. We then had our tractors out, and our tractors have sown the fields around here, and the fields are now growing. Look at here; they're in a growing state, and at this point in the summer, the fields grow now. You don't need any mechanisms to do anything or any workers in the fields. You only need them at the start of the year in the spring when you have the tractors out sowing. And then when you get to the third stage of the year, once they're finished growing, your harvesters go out and your covered hulls go out and collect the crops. These small fields here are one of the first ones that were sown back in maybe around March time or something like that. No, it was probably later. It was probably more like April. So we didn't have a farm already built at the start of the farming season. The winter finishes on, I think it's February the 22nd, when the snow stops, and then I believe that the tractors can go out as spring starts from the 1st of March. It might be a little bit later than that. Don't quote me on the 1st of March, but it is quite early in the year, and we didn't have a farm built at that point. We were still building the farm. The sowing started later and therefore finished later than it really ought to have done. Currently, we are about halfway through the growing progress on these particular fields. But if we look at further down the hill away from here, the later ones, we've got fields that are much less on the growing there. There's some that are barely grown, and in fact, we've actually got three fields here, right at the furthest away, that have tractors in them, and these fields are still being sown. I think this one here is probably the least sown. Now the tractor won't take very long, but that means that no growing has taken place, and all of the growing has to, once the tractor's finished, all the growing has to take place. So it will take some time. How long will it take? Well, if we go back up the hill to these small fields, they're about halfway through, almost exactly. I think very little difference between these. Very difficult to say any difference in the red indicator for all three of these. So they were probably all sown very, very close together. And the tractors don't take long, of course, on a fields these size. And I think these have been growing already for 2 months. Therefore, we can easily estimate that these will not be finished till early August. So if we assume that it is exactly 2 months, then we're talking about the 5th of August before these are completed. And that means it takes somewhere around up to 4 months for a field to grow. Now let's just add that on. If these ones that are just about, that still have some sowing to go, they will finish. Just say they finished in a week, middle of June. They won't finish till middle of July, middle of August, middle of September, middle of October, and then they can be harvested, which actually is not too bad from that point of view. Um, we must harvest the fields before the 1st of November, and actually we must start the sowing must be done by the 1st of June. So these are the last fields that have been started just before the 1st of June. We can't sow any more fields. Now I've literally just added these 4 fields on here. They weren't missed by the tractors; they just weren't there. I've added them in the last couple of days, and I've done that, and I've extended this road on the left here that connects these 4 fields to illustrate the idea that we're going to fill this area up and hope to sow this next year, so that we will start the whole process a little earlier, where farms will already be built, of course, and we're going to extend down here. We're going to put maybe another 6 big fields down here. Now, what I think I might do is actually build another farm down here, and potentially also extend across the road, but let's see. But at the minute, we have sown that number of fields, so ignore the 4 on the left, they're not sown, all the way down to here, and I'm hoping that we can get them all grown, and even though they won't finish growing till October, that we will have enough time to harvest them. That's not going to be very easy. Now, I've made a change to this. I ended up having to play through the last couple of months again. I had a problem with the save files. I had played through all in one go and had recorded it, or I thought I'd recorded it. I found a problem, and I had to come back to this point, play through to the end of it was the end of May, I think I got to in the last episode, and I've moved just a couple of days beyond that. But what I've done is I've actually moved this farm. This farm was originally going to be built up here, and when I played through again, I realised that it would make more sense to have the farm a little bit further away to cover more of this area. Now, that's not going to make a huge difference, I don't think. You know, a little bit in the sense that we use mud roads and keep them closer together. But the downside of it is that this farm is no longer connected to the grain storage. The grain storage is up here at the back of the food factory. Still, that's exactly how we had planned it. That the grain would all be stored there. Now, the default setup of a farm this medium farm would allow you 12 slots here, and the setup would provide you don't have to do it exactly this way. You can vary it according to what you think and how things work out in terms of your road layout and how far away the fields are from the farm and things. But you would generally do it, I think, by 1 to 1 to 1, which means 1 tractor to 1 harvester to 1 covered hull. So for a medium farm of this size, you would have 4 tractors, 4 harvesters, and 4 covered hulls. And that would give you the maximum coverage of the farm to have probably around 12 big fields. That would be the sort of current best advice, if you like, from the internet. You take that with a pinch of salt, and I do as well, because I'll put that word of warning on. I haven't tested the setup of farms extensively myself. I am relying to a certain extent on the testing that's been done by other people, and that would suggest very strongly, I've seen the videos, that is the way to go 4 tractors, 4 harvesters, and 4 covered hulls for a farm that would cover 12 fields, 12 big fields. If you have medium fields or small fields, you'll have more fields in total, but the overall area of those should still add up to around about 12 big fields. Now, you can expand this by not putting the covered hulls in the farm. And that is what I've done in the second playthrough. That's one of the reasons why I moved it. There's no covered hulls in this farm. It's all tractors and harvesters. I need to adjust the setup here. I think I added in a couple of extra tractors to compensate for the fact that we were starting to sow the fields later on in the year than we normally would have. I just bought a couple of extra tractors and put them in here rather than harvesters. So I need to take some of these out and put harvesters back in the place. And they're not very expensive, the tractors. I think they're only about 1,500 rubles, so it was worth doing that. If you do it this way, where you don't have the covered hulls in and you have 6 of each, then you can cover more fields. Well, how many more fields? Well, instead of 12 fields, you should be able to cover 18 fields. Now, it won't work out as perfectly as that because, of course, the more fields you have, the further away those fields have to be from the farm. But you clearly can get a significantly higher number of fields covered if you have 6 tractors rather than 4 tractors, 6 harvesters instead of 4 harvesters. Now, the problem is, of course, you say, well, Mark, there's no covered hulls there. How are you going to collect in the crops? Well, the covered hulls act pretty much like this is a distribution office. That a farm is set up like a distribution office. So you see all of these list of fields, and what the farm would do is send out the covered hulls to go to each field, and it has set them up so that it loads at the fields and then it unloads at itself. And the farm has storage built in. You can see it visually. You can see that it has these small grain silos actually in the farm. And when I click on it, you see that it has a warehouse that holds 76 tons of crops. Well, how much is that? Not very much. One of these big fields would, I think, somewhere around double or more than double a number of crops would come from one single field alone. And what we want to do is harvest maybe 15 or up to 18 big fields eventually. We're not going to do it this year, but that would be the idea for next year, to expand the size of the farm up to that sort of level. You have a problem with a farm anyway, that the storage in the farm is simply nowhere near big enough to store all of the crops that you need. So what you have to do with a farm anyway would be to have some attached storage, grain storage, the vanilla storage. You would put it here. I would turn that farm round, of course, so there'd be a factory connection, so that the crops dropped off in the farm would go into the grain storage. Say, if I took that road away, I could actually fit this grain storage sort of on this side with the factory connection, or around the back here. Yeah, you see the way it connects there, and you then have the all of that extra storage attached to the farm for the crops to go into that. Now, whether one of these vanilla storages that have about 800 tons is quite big enough is another question. I've got vanilla, I've got mods that would allow us to take a much bigger storage, and I've used one of these that take 3,200 tons in the game. But I haven't put it next to the farm. It's still up next to the food factory, so that we have to, of course, get the grain up there. Now, how are we going to do that? So, as I said, if we had the covered holes within this farm, it would come bring the crops back to the farm, and it would fill up in no time at all. And therefore, what we'd end up having to do is have a distribution office that would have to come and collect all of the crops from the farm and take them up to this other storage at the food factory. Now, we can avoid that. So instead of having any storage attached to the farm, we simply have the distribution office pick up from the fields and take it to the large storage there next to the food factory. Now, let me just go to a distribution office. Here's a standard distribution office that we've already got set up that's doing a number of jobs. And we can add to any distribution office, we can add a farm. Sorry, not a farm, a field. And when we add the field, you see the field gets added just like any other building. It's allowing loading and unloading. Now, I'm not sure why you would want to unload at a field, but you can load crops. So as long as you've got a covered hull within the distribution office, you can load crops from the fields. And of course, then you could give another instruction to the distribution office to then unload crops at a storage facility. So I'll just cancel that because we don't want to leave that instruction there. So a distribution office can do the same job as a farm. And so what I've done here is, instead of building a farm in that position with a connection through a factory connection to drop the crops into the large storage, I'm building a distribution office. And in fact, I've got two small distribution offices, one there and one here, because of course I've done exactly the same with this other farm. Now I've set this to be all harvesters and all tractors. Now it's missing two of its tractors, because I think once those two tractors had finished doing fields around this part, I sent those tractors over to the other farm. I need to get them back at some stage, and and so neither of the farms have covered hulls. The covered hulls will operate out of distribution offices. Now, what is the downside of this? The upside is we get more fields, and hopefully we're going to get more crops harvested. The downside is we have to build two more buildings, and our construction facilities are struggling to cope with this. One, we don't have a huge number of vehicles, construction vehicles. We got quite a few, but we don't have a massive number. But we also are lacking workers. We have only 3% unemployment in this city. Therefore, it's not like we have hundreds of workers who are standing around and say, oh, okay, I'll go and work at a construction site. Send me a construction bus and I'll get on that. No, we don't have, we have a reasonable number, but we don't have enough to have huge amounts of construction all going on at the same time. So what we've done so far, we've built the two farms. We had to get them done as quick as possible so that we could get tractors sent to them and then out to the fields. Fields, of course, don't need to be constructed, so they can be just built instantaneously, no cost, no time involved. So the fields are not the issue. The roads around them are not really an issue because I've used mud roads. I've made one exception that now during the growing season, while no tractors or harvesters are out and about, I've set the construction officers to gravel this road round the back, so that I'm going to try and gravel as much of that during the summer. But most of the gravelling of the roads are going to have to wait until next winter, when the farms again go into sort of hibernation for the winter. This is one of the awkward thing You know, if we gravel this road here down to this farm, it'd be great to do it. It would speed up the covered holes and things. Um, but if we do it and the season starts, the harvesting season starts, then nothing can get up this hill until that road is completed. No vehicles can use a road that is under construction or is being upgraded. So that is a problem. We don't have alternative routes. Maybe better planning might have given them, you know, that there was an alternative route. We could have maybe put a route in through here to allow the vehicles to get an alternative way around while we gravel the roads. But I haven't allowed for that, and that's fine. For this first year, we're going to mainly deal with the farmers with mud roads, um, and that will limit us a little bit, but it won't be too bad. So we've got a couple of distribution offices. They need to be built, and I don't think they're going to be built in time. We have our grain storage here between the farm and the distillery. That has not gone very far, so we need to progress that. I haven't given it as much priority as the first time round when I recorded the first time, because I realised, well, it doesn't. I don't need it now. I don't need it finished in June, July. We won't load any crops into it until the first harvest comes in August. So the plan is to get it finished by August. The food factory is ongoing. That's doing quite nicely. It's getting towards halfway done. We need that one done. We don't need it, but it would be nice to have it so that we would start to supply our citizens with food that we have created ourselves in our own factory, that we're not buying the food. We will still need to buy crops to use in this factory. But it's cheaper to buy the crops and turn that into food than it would be to buy the food ourselves. The very large grain storage, there has been pretty much no work on this at all, or is there? In fact, I think, yeah, there has been no work. I haven't set any of the construction officers yet to do any work on it, because again, it's obvious I don't need it until maybe around September or even October. Because as long as the first grain storage is available to drop grain into, that it can load 800 tons, and then we get the other one finished. It will involve more work, and it's a bit worrying that I haven't even started on it. But that's the intention, and then our heating plant, our new heating plant to save on the pollution, it needs to be started fairly soon as well. And so we have some major construction ongoing, and we can't afford to put the resources into these distribution offices, and I don't think these distribution offices are going to be built anytime soon. So what I've done is I've built a couple of these freebie mud distribution offices. I've put them in ready for us to put covered holes into, and that would then allow us to have the covered holes go out at the appropriate time. But there's a one here. There's a one I've put in there. They only hold 3 covered holes, unfortunately, and of course, unlike a proper distribution office, there is no fueling facilities when you have these free mud buildings. Come as part of the recent update from realistic mode, but you can use them even if you don't have realistic mode enabled, but you only have a limited number of them. But we can use them in this sort of situation as an emergency for this year. That means that those vehicles, for instance, if they need refueling, have to go all the way back up the hill to a gas station. So again, it would be nice to have a gas station or somewhere to refuel down here. But I just don't know that I have capability to build something like that at the minute. Anyway, that's the way the current setup on the construction in our farms is. Now, I've mentioned that our construction is under pressure. And one of the issues is that the construction officers are there down the hill, almost as far away from the construction sites as they can get. and a lot of the construction materials is then coming from the customs office, which is all the way up the hill, almost as far away as they can get from the construction offices. So none of that was ideal. And if we had had, I think I said before that the the better situation, if we had planned it further ahead, would have been to build a construction office around here and have 20 or maybe even a bigger one with 30 vehicles in it around this sort of location, so that the construction office itself was very close to where the construction was going to take place and wasn't too far away from the customs office. And I helped that situation a little bit by again using some of these freebie buildings. I put a couple of these little freebie construction offices, the mud ones, in up here that would hold 4 vehicles, get things like excavators and bulldozers closer to the building sites. I then also put a freebie mud gravel storage here. So I've got a distribution office that keeps filling this up, and the construction vehicles get that gravel from here rather than queuing up at the customs office to get it. And similarly, I had a open storage here that had steel prefabs, bricks and boards in it, 25% of each. Now what I've then done is I've changed this to be 50% steel, 50% prefab, and I've then added a second one in here, and this is 50% bricks and 50% boards. It's a little empty at the minute. Need a couple of deliveries of bricks here fairly urgently for work that needs to be done on the I think the food factory is waiting for bricks. Is it? Yeah, it's waiting for bricks. It needs 101 tons, so it needs quite a few deliveries of bricks, and it's got a reasonable amount of steel on site and some boards, so you can see it's using the boards for the scaffolding, but it needs bricks to continue building those walls up higher. So I put an extra open storage there to provide more facility and boost that side of things. And then I've thought, well, actually, I'm allowed 7 of these freebie mud storage, so I've put another 3 of them in here. The one in the middle actually is a technical office with snowplows. That isn't construction, so it's these 3 round it, and 2 of them I have dedicated to things like roads, factory connections, and the cargo loading areas. In other words, anything that's going to be just things like gravel and asphalt. So this one has a roller in it, because we didn't actually have any rollers at the construction offices, and we had no free spots to buy one. And this one has a paver. I'm not sure they'll get much use, but if we need a paver to do any asphalt, you see, we obviously need the bus stop uses asphalt. This loading bay, I don't know why that's ended up getting built before other things. I think I made a mistake when I've selected that at some point. But you see, it is a black surface. In other words, it has asphalt in it. So all the factory connections are like that, I believe. But mainly the roads, we're going to stick to gravel roads. So I have actually got 2 of these little freebie mud construction offices that are dedicated for roads. So they have a dumper truck, they have a micro bus, because we don't need a lot of workers to be sent to build a road, and they have a bulldozer. So you can build a road with, I think you can build a road with an excavator, but they're much more efficient if they have a bulldozer. That's the intention anyway, because and in the construction office tool, I have set it so that we have One is a general construction, and number two is the roads. And occasionally the roads, there's certain things that need concrete. I think a bus stop needs some concrete. I don't know if I've got sure. Well, I can't see it because that's finished. Um, most roads and the factory connections don't. So it's a very occasionally, if you need to assign something to like build a bus stop, that you'll need some concrete. I think you might even occasionally need the bus stop might need steel as well. So that might need the general construction officers to be assigned to it as well. Anyway, it's getting into a little bit of extra micro, and I said I didn't really want to do that. But again, we need to be a little bit more efficient and a bit more effective with the construction officers. Have as many of the vehicles on site, close to the construction, as possible, really, to save the journeys, but also to save this. And look what we've got here. I've only just set up those mud construction officers in the last couple of days, and I've been sending some of the vehicles to get there. You see, there's a bit of a jam at this crossroads, and we've ended up with 7 buses for construction. There is 4 of the large buses that hold whatever it is, 60, 80 people. But I've also got, I think it's 3 microbuses. And those 7 buses were all loading construction workers at the main bus platform here in the centre of the apartment blocks. So we had 7 extra buses going up this road, back and forward all the time. We've already banned lorries from this road, but we can't ban the ambulances and the police cars and the secret police. This road gets quite busy, and all of the construction vehicles, not just the buses, because the construction officers are down the hill behind the camera. You know, if I was turn around, see, I'm looking up the hill towards the customs office here. Customs office in the far distance, they're right up on top of the hill. So all of the vehicles, not just the buses, would have all come up this road to this crossroads. The lorries and bulldozers and excavators would have turned off to the left and gone towards the construction sites. You can see there's a couple of cranes here that are on their way to those freebie new construction offices that I've just put down. Plus all of the lorries that are moving forward and meat and things like that. So this crossroads becomes quite busy, and anything that goes up this road, see, there becomes a bit of a traffic jam here. So what I've done there is I've moved all of the buses here to this little construction site. Again, another freebie mud one. Or rather, all of the 4 big buses. The microbuses are just scattered around the other construction offices. And the reason I've put it here is because I've now set the buses to go to this small bus platform. So what we originally had was, the setup was, this was mainly the large one for passengers and for a small number of workers who were working at the amenities area down the hill, at the cinema, at the there's a small shopping centre, and there is a swimming pool and a restaurant. So the workers that would work down there would be picked up by buses from the big platform. But most of this platform is for passengers who are going to go to visit the concert hall and the cinema and the swimming pool. Most of the workers come to this bus stop, and these are the buses that then would take them up to work at the distillery, the secret police, the heating plant and the power plant. And it's those buses which would then also, they come up to a bus stop here, I would go to the food factory, because the foot factory was in walking distance of this. Now we're putting another bus stop in here so that this would be within walking distance of both the foot factory and the heating plant to extend that. But the same bus can just do that journey. It can just do the circle around here. It would go to the first bus stop and then go to the one at the foot factory. So that bus stop was already in place. It's a smaller bus stop, so instead of 500 workers, it only holds 230. But if I look at it, it never ever holds anywhere near this, because we have quite a regular set of buses coming, take people up to the power plant, the distillery, and we can watch it, and you say that there'll be a bus come fairly soon, and will take most of these workers away. No, that's a lorry. That's a meat wagon, a refrigerated lorry, I think. Is a bus going to come? Got 60 or 70 workers working here, waiting here now. They're not stuck in the traffic jam, because that's the other thing here. That the end bus station was here, so that all of the buses are coming in and out of this crossroads. And I think, with hindsight, the positioning of the end bus platform is not ideal. So anyway, there's a bus just arrived. And is it going to take away a load of these workers? Yes, it is. So even though that has filled up, there's still quite a lot of workers here. And this is because I've set one of these apartment blocks to send more workers to this point, so we can get the construction workers here. So we need the construction buses to pick up some of these workers. We've got 2% unemployed. The idea would be to get this down, if we can, to zero unemployment, and make use of all of those workers and send them to construction sites. So the buses are currently being relocated from the original construction offices up to here. So there's 3 there. So hopefully they'll be sent out on jobs soon. Okay. They've arrived there, and they haven't been told yet where to go, because this is a new construction office. We tell them, right, okay, you need to go to this bus platform. Now, I don't need to set any of the others where to get gravel from, where to get asphalt from, because the only vehicles in this construction office are buses. So it'll moan and say, I've got no source for steel, but it doesn't matter. There's one of the buses pulling out there, and maybe, yeah, I think all 3 of them will probably be sent out now. That first one, it'll come down the hill now. This bus stop. Just speed that up a little bit. And there's just in front of it. And you see, this only has 2 bus stops, 2 parking spaces. In fact, we don't often get so many buses turning up here that this is a problem, that they queue up. What will happen is these construction buses will get more spread out anyway. 3 of them have all left the construction office at the same time. By the time they've dropped their workers off and come back, they'll be a bit more spread out, and they won't be turning up at the same point. So this bus is now left, and it has got 19 workers on, and it is going to the foot factory. So I'm going to pause. That's fine. That's working, and that'll be much more efficient. It'll be quicker for the construction, apart from anything else, because they're closer, and it will stop the traffic jams that were being taking place on this road. So that improves the construction. We've got 1 or 2 extra vehicles. As I said, I bought a paver and a roller. That's all. Most of the vehicles have literally been just moved out from those construction offices down the hill. They've only got 2 vehicles left in them now. The 2 covered hulls, and you basically rarely need covered hulls for construction. They're needed for mechanical and electrical components, and most buildings don't have very much of those. When they're needed, they're damned expensive, but you don't need very much. So you might get, let me just see if I can see. These conveyors, I think, need mechanical components. Yeah, they do. So the conveyors need some mechanical components. But look, they only need 1.2 tons of mechanical, which is less than one truckload. Um, so you don't actually need very many trucks. Now that is the conveyor engine. The conveyor itself, let me just see whether the conveyor needs mechanical components. Yeah, it does. Yeah, the conveyor needs 4 tons, which again is less than one lorry load. If I look at the food factory doesn't need any mechanical components. About the heating plant. So a building that big that needs a whole load of concrete and steel and bricks and everything else still only needs 2.2 tons of mechanical components, one lorry load. So the fact that the covered hulls that would bring the mechanical components are down the hill, I don't think is a problem. And literally, I've used all 7. We only allowed 7 of these freebie construction officers, and I've used all 7. So 7 times 4 vehicles in each is, of course, 28 vehicles. And I think in total we must have had 30 construction vehicles. So 2 of them have had to stay out, and those are the 2 covered hulls still back down the hill. Everything else is much closer. So that I think is going to work a lot better. Now, I've got one other significant change that I've put in. I mentioned that I was bringing here gravel, buying all the gravel, and we need quite a lot of gravel the roads and things like that. And we're just dumping it here from the distribution office. And really, what we should do when we're doing any sort of significant construction is we really ought to have the construction materials as much as possible built by ourselves. So actually, the way to do this, we the most effective way to do any major construction when you're doing it yourself is to first of all at least consider making some of the construction factories, if you like, yourself, so that you, for instance, make your own cement. And if you make your own cement, you can make your own concrete, make your own prefab panels, make your own asphalt, your own bricks. Or you can make your own steel, but wow, that's expensive to do because you need coal mines, you need ore, iron ore mines, you need iron ore processing and coal processing, and then you need a steel mill. That is a major undertaking and is very expensive. But some stage you need to do it. But what most people will probably do is early in the game set up their own gravel system. So they're not importing gravel. Now, gravel's not expensive. Let me just show you on the economy and go to the import of resources. And yet, we've got 214 tons of gravel, and it's only cost us 4,000 rubles. But that is the second highest amount that we've spent. See, the highest is steel. So, we're spending more money on gravel than we're spending on fuel or coal for the heating and the power plant, and more than we're spending on food. So we're trying to build a food factory to save ourselves that money that we're currently buying food from the customs. We're buying meat from the customs to give to our citizens. But you can see that the amount of gravel we're using, although gravel itself is not expensive, a ton of gravel is not expensive, we end up buying so much compared to, for instance, bricks. Look, we only needed 10 tons of bricks so far this month. Uh, so we ended up only spending 394 rubles on it. Just go the whole of this year. Um, so over the year as a whole, it hasn't been too bad, but still 13,000 rubles we've spent. Still, look, it's the steel which is really really expensive. That is your biggest factor when you're constructing lots of new buildings. Still, what generally happens is gravel is really easy available. You go to your map and you have marked on the map where to find the coal, where to find the iron, the oil, the uranium, and the bauxite. There isn't actually many of those on this map at all, to be honest. You know, you don't have a huge amount of oil on this map, and none of it is actually very close to where we are with this city. It's a bit of a problem, to be honest. Um, and one of the things with this particular map is that somebody has made it really difficult to get those sort of resources, I think, by putting so few on. A random map generated by the game would put far more coal on the map, far more iron ore, and uh, probably smaller deposits, but much more spread out. And what they've also then done is really limit the amount of gravel. Now, what I would have expected is in this valley we might have seen gravel. I mean, seen gravel sort of somewhere around the edge of the city. Like a rock deposit on the ground, even though it's flat ground. It's not unusual on the random maps that you say an area which is rocky but flat, and you put your quarry there. You quarry out stone and convert that into gravel. There's no gravel here. It's very difficult to find anywhere where there is any rocks on this map. Apart from, actually, is that some there? Oh, maybe it is. That's interesting. I hadn't noticed that, but let me just put the contours on. Ah, okay. So, no, I thought I'd found a source, and it's no good as well. So here, let me take the contours. Oops, not go back underground. Take the contours back off. That grey area is all rocks, and that can all be potentially quarried. So you think, well, that's not a problem. It's not that far away from the city, um, though. Though it's not close. I would like it an awful lot closer. Oh, look, there's some as well. It's even closer. The problem is, again, when I put the contours on, look how steep it is. All of that rock, it's like a cliff. So actually, one of the problems with this map is how steep some of these areas are, how difficult you'd have of running roads around here, or even worse with railway lines, how you would navigate all of these very steep areas. Um, it's bad enough that you have to get over these rivers. It's even worse that how steep it is. So there is rocky areas, but that all on these very steep places. Now, if I was to take, I think it's on the miscellaneous, and what you do is you take a gravel quarry, and that produces stone. See, I can't build a quarry there; it needs flat terrain, and it is so steep that it's almost impossible to terraform that to put a quarry anywhere here. So if we look right, okay, it's not so bad here. It's not quite as steep. Still steep, but it's not quite as steep. But there's no rocks there, apart from that tiny, tiny bit along the edge. Maybe is that? I'm not even sure that is rocks actually. Um, but again, it tells us no, it's too steep here. We need to flatten it. Now I think we could flatten here, but there's no rocks. There's nothing to quarry. Here, flatten that. How steep is that? Again, too steep. Further down the river. There's rocks. Too steep. And in all these flattish areas, a little bit away from the river, even if we're just talking about 50, 100 meters from the river, there's no rocks. So we're literally saying that the rocks are being put in. No rocks here. No rocks here along that bit of coastline. And, it's all along the river, I should say. And yeah, there's some rocks. Again, ridiculously steep. So, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to build a quarry. And I'm going to put it here. This is not too far away from the city. And I'm going to do it. So, I'm actually going to use a mod. I'm going to use this one. And this is just allows one single excavator. And I think this will do the trick. So, it has the facility to connect a conveyor. There's no way we can use conveyors here to then connect to a gravel processing. It's far too steep. And actually, it's interesting here. You see, when we get down here, can I get a little bit lower to the ground with the camera? Not really. But you see how steep that field is. And you get the impression of how much up the hill Vranyoskaya is. That's perhaps not so apparent when you're up at, let me just get up in the air, when you're up at this height, I get up here, yeah, up a height, go on. Oh, I think it's because I've got a building, that's better, get my camera up a bit higher. You don't get that impression. This looks reasonably flat. You can maybe tell there's a little bit of a hill from left to right. But when you get down here and you realize how steep this all is, and in fact in real life there's no way tractors would probably work on a field that steep. So anyway, I'm going to put here now. But let's go back to this. I can't put it on the side here close to the river. It's too steep. What I'm going to try and do is put it at the edge of the cliff as close as possible. So I'm going to put it somewhere around here. I think, let me see. Now, because I need to hold the left mouse button to flatten the terrain, I get no indication whether there's any gravel quality. Now, I can put it here. But you see, there is no rocks there, and the quality of source is 0. I cannot quarry there. And it won't tell me what the quality is. I mean, I think the quality is going to be 60 or 70% if we were to build it actually on the cliff face, but we can't build it on the cliff face. I'm going to build it on the top as close as I can. And so I'm going to hold the left mouse button. I'm going to be a bit slow. I think I've only got one excavator available to do this terraforming. I might time lapse this. There, that's not so bad. Now, as I've just managed to get it flat enough here to build the quarry a little bit. Can I just build it a little bit? Now, if I move a little bit in further in towards the city, I think it came up with 24%, but right on the edge it's 32%. Now, I don't know if I can get better than this. 40-50%. And I'm gonna build it. Build it. 30% is not so bad. So that's there, ready to build. And now I'm going to put a road in, and I'll just time lapse that as well. Okay, so that just fits in between those two fields. So I mentioned that I had literally added in these extra fields, these four extra ones that have not been sown in the last day or two, and I did it deliberately to make sure that I had enough of a gap to get that road in. I didn't put it too close to there because I had this plan, this idea of where I could get a quarry. Now it looks to me that if I'd wanted to, I could put another two or three quarries along the edge of here. But in fact, one quarry with one excavator can produce a fair amount of gravel. In fact, what generally happens is that, uh, under my experience, is the limiting factor is often not what the excavator can do. And by the way, the game tells you that. Let me just show you this. The game tells you that a quarry, the vanilla one, for instance, 40 workers. Now, you don't need workers at a quarry. A quarry will work without any workers whatsoever. It's like a farm field. You don't need workers in a field. The game allows workers to go and work in a field, but you don't need them. The tractors will do the job. You don't need workers to come and sow a field. In my view, it's a total waste of work because you should get them doing more effective things. But I have to say, I didn't realize this for a long time, and I think that's one of the things in the game that it can mislead you here to think you need to bring workers here and you need to have a bus that brings workers to the quarry. You don't. You just dump an excavator in here, and that will dig out a reasonable amount of quarried stone. And the limiting factor then becomes the getting the dumper trucks to come and pick the stone up and taking it to a gravel processing. Now, if this was all flat, what you could do is you could connect the quarry, or even multiple quarries, by conveyors to a gravel processing. No way we're going to fit gravel processing plant here because it's too steep. But the downside, anyway, is that gravel processing does need workers, so you would then have to bus workers out to here. So the question then is, you'd have to then take the gravel from here back to the city. You may as well just carry the stone in dumper trucks away from the quarry and take it to gravel processing. Now, I've already got a gravel processing that I've already built, and it is up here. So I have used a mod. This is a mod which has about 2/3 of the capacity of the vanilla gravel processing. I don't believe we need that sort of capacity again. I'm not trying to do this on an industrial scale or produce enough gravel for a whole republic. We're doing it just for this one single city. You can make your own decision about that, whether to make the effort to put a larger gravel processing plant in, because the bigger it is, the more workers you need. It doesn't need a lot of workers. The vanilla needs 15, I think. It's this building here. Yeah, gravel processing, 15 workers. The mod here that would produce about 2/3 of the production needs up to 10 workers. Now, if I look at that, you can see that it can produce 55 tons of gravel per day. Now, there is no way we can use that amount of gravel per day. We just don't have enough dumper trucks to carry that to all of the construction sites, enough workers to work at those construction sites. What you start to get when you need those sort of volumes of gravel is when you have rail production. You have to feed the rail construction office quite a lot of gravel that it lays down as part of the track building. So this is going to be more than adequate for this. And then what I've done is I've then connected the gravel processing to through a conveyor to a open storage aggregate gravel storage area. It's a open aggregate, and they can hold 1,000 tons of gravel here. I need to get this actually producing something. So what I need to do is, let me just think about this. Right. So I need a bus. I'm going to buy a bus, and let me just buy a Skoda. I'll just buy a normal one of the buses. That's fine. Just grab that. Get rid of the depot. And now I want to set up a new line, and I'm going to set up a line that goes the opposite way around to what we normally do. So normally we start here at the workers bus stop and we go up the hill around the prison to the bus stop in front of the distillery and the power plant. I'm going to go the opposite way around. So I'm going to go from here, and I'm then going to go to the I'm going to go actually into the gravel processing. And you're allowed to do that. Buses can go into buildings, drop off, because I haven't got a bus stop here. Now I think I need to build a bus stop at some point to improve this area. We're going to expand our industry into all of around here eventually. So we need to build a bus stop. We'll drop the workers off at the gravel processing, come up the hill, go to the bus stop at the food factory, and then go to the bus stop at the distillery, and then from there we then go to the end of line. That's absolutely fine. So we've done it through the bus. So let me just click on this to view the details of the line. So it's created a line for us with those instructions. We're going to at the apartment blocks, we're going to load only workers. We don't want, and actually, yeah, I don't want university workers going and working at the at the gravel processing. So accept those changes. And I'm just going to name this to be industry workers line. Actually, this is clockwise line. The other line that we already had in place, which is I think got 3 or 4 buses on it. So let me just launch that bus so that it starts its journey. If I set press play, and there's the bus there, it's on its way. Just slow that down. I don't want everything running too quick. The other line is power plant workers, and this now goes up to the power plant, and it needs to then come down the hill and go to the food factory bus stop. And does it need to go to the gravel? I don't think so, no. That'll be fine. And then I want to rename this to be industry workers counterclockwise line. But two lines that go, one goes clockwise, one goes counterclockwise. Save that, and that's absolutely fine. So those buses will that are going to the gravel processing can pick up 30, 40, 50 workers. They will only drop off a couple here, and we're going to set this. We're going to set this to 3. I'm literally going to have 3 people working here because most of the time there will be nothing for them to do. Won't be a huge supply of quarried stone coming to them. So now I need to have the quarry built. So I need to set that. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to get this constructed, of course. So general construction, get that built. And now the other thing that I need to do here is we need power there because it can refuel the excavator. But if the excavator runs out of fuel because there's no power, it obviously can only refuel. It does have a little fuel tank. here to keep the excavator fueled. If it doesn't have power, it can't use that fuel tank. So you can imagine the excavator would have to come up the hill here and go all the way up to the city, back to the gas station, and the excavator's slow moving. You don't want that. So I've got a switch here, and I'm going to just put in a cable from here. Let me just put a substation in first. Just make sure that I get it to a position that's within range. Can it go further up here? No, it can't. It can't go up here. It needs to go down there. So that's something else that needs to be built. And let me just run a cable down here. I think we can get it between the road and the... Oh, will it go between the road and the... Oh, I don't know if it will. Oh. What's going on here? Ah, okay, that's it. You see, if you're too close to the road, it won't let you build. If you're too close to the field, I will let you build close to the field. So that's fine. We should be able to get that up to there. Cross over the road. Can we get around the corner? Go up to there and then join onto the... That's it. Set that away to be built and then set the general construction to it. And then for the power substation as well. So this is extra construction, of course. So we've already told about the fact that our construction offices are pretty busy, but the idea was that fairly soon, and hopefully within a few weeks, we have the facility to start producing quarried stone, bringing it up the hill with a couple of dumper trucks and converting it into our own gravel. So we're not paying for the gravel, and that we have an ample supply of gravel close to where all the construction's taking place. It may not make an immediate difference in the overall construction of what we're doing now with the food factory and the grain silos and things like that. But in the long term, we're going to need an awful lot of gravel to gravel all of these roads around the farms, and it'll come in useful. So I don't think I'll go into time lapse. I will probably put a gap in the video. In fact, I think I need to break the video here and come back in another episode. My channel's Canny Gaming and my name is Mark, and I'm out of here.